A very good evening to you. In today's business segment on the ballot brief, the Minerals Council in South Africa is calling for a united effort after the national elections to boost the industry's performance and set it up for growth in the future. The council has emphasized that it requires the administration that wins the polls to ensure that inclusive growth is prioritized to charge a refreshed platform of gains for all stakeholders. The body has further stressed that succeeding in this will dictate the input of business, Labour, government, as well as civil society groups. We turn our attention to this now, a discussion around South Africa's political economy after the May 29 elections. One of the matters raised is how to deal with turmoil or reform in the economy. These are the issues raised in Professor Raymond Parsons' book titled Tipping Point. Professor Parsons from the Northwest University joins us now for an extended conversation in this regard. A warm welcome to you, Professor Parsons. I think where we need to start is that the book itself extrapolates from economic policy in the Mbeki as well as Zuma years. What do we first need to take out for the new administration that will come in after the polls that would be lessons that are critical and required?
Well, good evening to you, Tumasang, and thank you for the opportunity. I think we're only perhaps just over 2 weeks away from watershed election. And when we were planning the book about a year ago, these were the issues that we began to see emerging in our crystal ball in order to get the timing of the book. And in a sense, one could say this is a book whose time has arrived at this point, because we could clearly see it was going to be a watershed election. A combination of factors, economic, political, and social, would converge around this election. Also, we would be celebrating 30 years of democracy. We would be assessing it. All this would be converging. We realized there would be much more political competition, more political options to choose from, and that quite clearly we would be assessing a tipping point, if one could put it that way, in which the 14 chapters in the book look at the agenda, which not only affects the dynamics around the election itself, but also what might lie beyond. Yeah. And the important message of the book, which addresses several of the items of a future agenda, would be, well, basically, if we want good economics after the election, if we want to address unemployment, poverty, and inequality more successfully than we've done so far, we're going to need good politics. Now, that's the uncertainty. That's the bottom line. Yes, there is more political competition. There are more options. It's a volatile situation in many ways. But the bottom line is, of course, because South Africa has never been here before, there's a whole new set of dynamics, and this inevitably does generate uncertainty and a precautionary stance among investors and the markets until they see exactly where the political chips may fall after the 29th of May.
I'll say it's what I found most intriguing about how academics in this book have penned their opinions around. In South Africa, one cannot really separate politics out of economics. In a sense, the economics have turned out to be the politics of the day, and they become social because we have a high unemployment rate, historic inequality, but overall, we seem to be talking about the same issues that are still not resolved, and there isn't seemingly economic policy that is meant to drag South Africa out of the seeming turmoil that it finds itself in. What is the reasoning behind penning the thoughts and the solutions that you are looking to provide?
Well, I think the point that you make is very valid. I like to sum it up. I probably said it before, but let me say it for those who haven't heard it before. I like to say that at the moment, our GDP, which we talk about as the gross domestic product of our economy, is not only about our economy, it's also the gross domestic politics, and very gross, of course, in a time of election, two sides of the same coin. And I think the important point that comes through is that given both the successes and the failures of the past, we're now at a tipping point where the failures are indeed dominating and calling for reform, for various remedial measures that need to be urgently implemented after the election. And the important point here is that if you want a favorable economic environment in which you're going to get investment, growth, job-rich growth, be able to reduce unemployment, get transformation and reform going in a very meaningful way compared with the past, because of the demands of the world and South Africa today, then you need, of course, efficiency, you need stability, and you need consistency in the policy environment. And we're not only talking about the national government, the outcome of the elections at the national level, but also at the provincial level, because quite clearly some of the political outcomes, when we talk about various coalition outcomes that may transpire both nationally and provincially, bear in mind that if the fact remains that all the political pundits, you can take a choice. I'm just an economist, but when I listen to my friends on the political side, each one has a different number. Maybe the ANC may get 51%, maybe they might get 45%, maybe they may get 39%. Well, it says we haven't been here before, but for those who have to take business and, in fact, even consumer decisions, they need more certainty, and we won't get that until after the election. And the way to do that is, as I said earlier, to be able to ensure that there will be the political leadership to address the new political dynamics in a way that will give our economy the efficiency, the stability, and the consistency that you need to get job-rich growth, and to make many of the viewers feel that after this elections, things could get better from the point of view of their livelihoods and the unemployment levels that we are experiencing in South Africa.
On that note, as we wrap up, Professor Parsons, allow me to ask you whether practicality is what we see in the manifestos of the different political parties that are vying for the top seat in this country, be it the governing ANC or any other formation that would get the ANC out of power, should we even get to that narrative. Does it make sense, what we are seeing on paper, given that much of the content goes unread too?
I think what's important now is that everyone should vote. Whatever your expectation, you've got to send a message to whatever political party you favor and say, we want things to be done differently. But what is interesting is that if you look at the manifestos of the major parties, the major players, what is the common thread? The common thread is the economy. It is issues of unemployment, of growth, of corruption, state capture, all the things that we need after the election to ensure that we have a much better economic performance than we've had in our recent years. And that means it's tremendously important that although there are uncertainties, we're into a whole new game plan as to what will the dynamics of coalition politics be. Our experience at the local government level, at the metro level, is not very good. But if you're going to lose faith in that, then you're going to lose faith in democracy. You've got to say, yes, there's a learning curve. Yes, we've made mistakes. Yes, we're going to have to deal, if we are confronted with a wide range of coalition politics, we've got to find the norms and the guidelines that make it work. Other countries have done so. We have to learn to do so, if that is where we are. So it quite clearly, even if the ANC emerges as still the largest single party, whatever other coalitions may emerge, we want an economic direction that promises the electorate and the country that the country will be run after the election through appropriate political leadership that will create an economic environment which will give us the jobs and the economic growth and the livelihoods that we think we ought to be generating from an economy with the kind of potential that we actually have.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Professor Raymond Parsons there talking to us as we build up towards the May 29 elections and discuss the political economic landscape in the country. He is part of the academics that penned the book titled Tipping Point.